Keep the condom in the pack. This is Raw Truth with Protege. Today, we're going to talk about that relationship between South Africa and Russia. Because I almost fear that you guys don't read any history. Because why are people, first of all, why are you excited? But why are you surprised that South Africa is fully supporting Russia? You know? Because they've had a relationship since the Soviet Union days. I mean, they literally had a bonded relationship from 1945 to 1991. Now, Russia didn't have, like, the South Africa fighting in, their wars or anything like that or in their recovery, but they damn sure had them funding it. Don't ever get that twisted. So, because as Americans, Black Americans just look at Africa and they think you could do no wrong. We want to be so much like them and their traditions and shit like that. Them people, they're politicians, left that country, went to places like America and India to study economics and what works for those countries so they can have a thriving country when they came back. Instead, they came home with social theories that they get from influencers that they were in relationships with, like China and fucking Russia. So you get, like I said, communism and socialism. And they start to implant this shit inside of their economic systems. And what does it end up by? They had their independence in 1961. They were a republic. By 1965, they were putting out a negative per capita. And instead of looking back and seeing like, yo, what is going on with our policies? What are we doing wrong? What do we need to change? They decided to push the blame on other countries like America and India. And if we're being all the way completely honest with all the history that Africa has, America plays very little role. Okay? They were putting out a negative per capita, dealing with starvation, dealing with violence, dealing with a population decline from like 1965 to the 1980s, bro. It wasn't until 1995 they started to see a positive per capita. And by 1997, you had like a dozen places in Africa seeing a positive per capita. But why? Because they started to change policy, started to free up the economic system, aka they started to free up the market. So they started to see positive growth. But if you know anything about economics, you know that from a lot of studies, the more freedom the people have, the more the economy thrives. Okay? The more freedom the people have, the more the economy thrives. Africa hasn't really gotten around to giving its people its freedoms. So what I'm getting at is, everybody's so excited about this relationship, but the relationship is just who they support. Shit. People are literally like, oh, if South Africa's siding with Russia, they must be right. So you think that the Soviet Union was right? Because if we got to go back into that part of history, you think Russia was right? Do you see what that fucking shit did to them? The negative influence that just because, Africa kept its traditions. They were more poor under independence rule than they were under imperial rule. Because, Africa kept its traditions, unlike most places that, suffered under imperial rule. But instead, it took social theories. And that's how shit ended up economically. It took them years to finally start to free shit up. And even then, you were only seeing like a 5% growth rate. And that's because, come on now, they got to free up the economy completely to get what you're looking for. We always look to put the blame on elsewhere and put the blame on other places. That's why problems never get solved. This is really for people who sit up and they're like, yo, everybody wants to be a communist. Because like, yo, man, Black Panthers and African Party in 1921. Those ideas destroyed the economy. Those ideas are the reason why you see those little fucked up pictures you see on the internet. When are we ever going to acknowledge the bullshit that goes into something. If you want to be like something, you want to see something thrive, then you have to acknowledge the wrong moves made so you can correct them and make the appropriate moves. I don't give a fuck if you were living in the United States. I don't give a fuck what other continent or country. Because some people just say Africa, some people say South Africa or whatever. I don't give a fuck who supports the opposing country. Don't be a fucking traitor. And then you're being a traitor with ignorance. With fucking ignorance. That same relationship that you're, oh, I'm so anti-American and pro this, was the same relationship that influenced them to put that fucking economic shit into their system and ruined the countries before they even started to grow. They never had a chance with the independence. But whatever. This is Raw Truth with Protege.